Hey.
Hey,
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
good. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm
And
good.
who is that sitting with you?
This is my assistant. Her name is Sophie Claire. She's an
Sophie
emotional support
Claire.
animal.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome. Awesome.
she's a toy cocker spaniel.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's a
she's so
cutie.
She
cute.
likes to be the star of my meetings. Like she sees me put the headphones on and then she hops up like, here I am.
Ah,
Nice.
don't people know
Awesome.
that dogs always steal the show?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Never work with kids or animals.
that's right.
Well, Ramanda, I'm the one who's been talking to you. I'm Mike. I got Jeremy and Vinnie here. We're visual saints. We also have our dude Saint, who was thinking about calling in, but he's in the middle of the Pacific, so we'll see if he can or not. But
Bering Sea, close enough.
Bering Sea is, northern Pacific.
Sure.
But
Oh, okay.
we wanted to chat with you. I know you reached out to me, which is awesome. We're glad to have any kind of guest and topic on the show. So we are
Okay.
really kind of curious because we know nothing about dance movement therapy, right?
Yeah, correct.
All right. So tell us what is that? What does it entail?
So, dance movement therapy, scientifically, we're on the same tree as embodiment studies. Embodiment is the philosophy that whatever you experience emotionally also shows up in the body. So, like, oh, I have a stress headache, oh, I have an anxiety tummy ache, etc. That's, a very everyday version of the belief of embodiment. On the clinical therapy, we're part of the expressive therapies family. So anything that uses the modality of an art form, such as music, poetry, literature, visual arts, to achieve the goals and treatment of clinical psychology. So that's a little bit, I like to show the different trees when I start talking about it to kind of explain where we are in the family of stuff.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
who is the target demographic, sort of say, for this type of therapy?
Well, people with bodies and minds are a good place to start. Since we're working with embodiment, it's very broad, it's very open. A lot of people specialize in different things. Me personally, I specialize in developmental movement, which does a lot for trauma recovery. And I love working with itty bitties, and I end up working with a lot of adolescents and women.
Good. That's great.
And how did you
Mhm.
get into the field? Like, I have a psychology background, but like I know some things psychology. I never would have heard about this. I've heard of, like you said, the mind body connection.
Mhm.
I know there's a author. I always drop Howard Stern's name, but he always talks about Dr. Sarno and how I don't know Howard Stern. I just drop it because I like to
Oh, okay.
I want to interview like him. But he always talks about how back pain is somehow related to the mind, and so like the whole mind body thing that's kind of
Absolutely.
okay.
That's a part of embodiment studies. For
Okay.
example, lower back pain is pain and fear of the past. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to experience that. I'm hiding it behind my back, so to speak. We're real fun creatures when it comes to those word games our subconscious plays with ourselves. So
Okay.
you're on the right track when you say, does that fit in there?
Okay. And like, how did you get involved with it? Were you just, was it something you stumbled upon? Was it something you knew about and wanted to pursue?
Well, I think I stumbled on it in the way you can say that somebody who was set in a room full of marbles stumbled on it. It's kind of like it picked me. I started out, believe it or not, in organized religion. I started out as a reverend in the Assemblies of God.
Okay.
And I was a missionary. I did short term missions for 3 years as a full time unpaid volunteer. Um, and the part that I really enjoyed was being a dancer, having a background as a soloist. When you go to certain countries that are experiencing cultural genocide and real genocide, if you say you're any kind of artist, they just shove the kids at you. Okay, teach them something. You got
Right.
you got
Right.
music, you got dance, whatever. Here you go, teach the kids. So I had these aha moments overseas of, if I could just do this somehow as a living, I'd be a real happy person.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I stumbled on it. I wasn't looking for it, but I was. I did end up having to resign from ministry. I started having panic attacks from just trying to do too much and be too much. And have no money, and sometimes as a missionary have no food if nobody donated to that organization. I
Right.
came home from a country to the missions house here in the US, and there was like 2 packets of ramen, and I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. This isn't working. We got
Yeah.
low workability here. So I resigned without knowing what the next thing was. And I went home and I was looking for choreography. I was online. I was like, let me not get lazy. I'm still a soloist. Let me look for choreography at that time, not now. Let me look for choreography. And I stumbled on somebody's video project of their final project for being a dance movement therapist. So, no big deal. I was a little excited. I didn't eat or sleep for 3 days. And now here we are. And I'm a dance movement therapist.
That's great. Now, is this done in a group dynamic, or do you do it one-on-one with patients, or
Yep, absolutely both.
Oh, absolutely both? Okay.
I love doing groups. There's something extra that peers get from each other,
Sure.
right? It's not the person selling it; they're getting it from each other, and it's a big what we call buy-in. It's a big way in therapeutically. So yeah, absolutely both.
So is this more each person's kind of like free form dancing, or are you trying to do like a choreography to get them engaged, or how does this work?
You can use choreography, but that's why the definition of dance movement is dance movement. And it's not proper to say dance therapy because that implies you have to be able to dance. A lot of the questions I get about possibilities is, well, what if someone's in a wheelchair? Or what if someone's missing a limb? Or body trauma questions like that. And my answer is, if they can understand me, if they can respond to music, if we can have some kind of mind-body connection, there's still possibility. That's where I work from. So I don't care if the person's in the hospital bed laying down, if they're in the wheelchair, it's to express. So if that be a gesture of movement, if the person only has a couple gestures, we can work on that. But there's no prerequisite. If you have a body, you're in, right? If you got skin, you're in. We're in the human club. We can all do expressive therapies.
Sure.
Yeah. I hope I answered that. I know I went a couple places there.
Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Mike, I think you're muted,
Mike?
buddy.
Oh, sorry. That's me. Yeah, we go off on tangents on this show all the time, so it's all good.
Okay.
Regarding because you mentioned a few times you were a soloist. What is that like? What did you do as far as dance? I know nothing about dance. My daughter took ballet a little bit, but that's all I know. Is that what soloist means, or is that a different form of dance that you were specializing in before you got involved in this?
Yes. So I grew up doing liturgical dance. I specialized in interpreting worship music with signed English to make the feeling of the worship music accessible for non-hearing folk. And from there, I veered off into choreographed stage fighting and human video. So I have a big body of personal work when it comes to embodiment or taking on a character or doing mime or feeling the music that existed. And you have to have a dance resume to be accepted as a dance movement therapist. You have, well, maybe not dance, you have to have an embodiment resume, whether that be you've been into yoga or Tai Chi or martial arts or ballet or a dance, or in my case, liturgical dance. You definitely have to prove that you really are a dancer deep down at the core of you to get in any dance movement program.
Okay.
And where are these programs normally? Is it a university, college, or
So this is a graduate program. There are currently 7 places in the world. We're working on number 8 in India, so stay tuned. 2 are in the UK and 5 are in the US. I personally hail from Lesley University, so call me biased, but we're the best. They have the only hybrid program. So I was able to take spring and fall term via virtual and do my internship back home in my community, and then attend residency in the summer to get the training to be able to go home and pioneer my modality. Kansas City doesn't have another dance movement therapist that's active besides me. So if you feel called to somewhere, if you feel like this is my city, these are my roots, Lesley happens to be the best.
There you go. Good plug. I like it.
Thank you.
We're all about the shameless self-promotion on the show.
Absolutely.
They don't pay me. I don't get anything from them. I just want to make more dance movement therapists in the world.
Oh, that's good. That's a good outlook.
And I mean, we talked about like the ages, like, you know, adolescents and little guys and girls and everything. Is there any particular, and I don't want you to feel put on the spot or anything, any success story that stands out to you that like really like affected you or anything like that? You don't have to use names or anything if you don't want to. I just wasn't sure.
Paring down, I always use fake names. I'm in the habit now. So
Okay.
I'm always Sally and Bobby and whomever. Paring it down, I wrote my thesis about me creating a protocol for dealing with multi-DX clients. So that's clients with multiple diagnoses. Could be a physical disability on top of a mental disability on top of a behavioral diagnosis. All of these layers, right? What some people might label a difficult client. I love those cases. Give me that on top of my breakfast because we have some fun. I met this one little guy and English was probably his third language. His family had lived in a refugee camp for 5 or 6 years. So like most of his life on top of his disabilities. And they had just come home to the US for real, which was how he got a pass from the state to have emergency services. So, you know, the fancy expressive arts can be for, you know, that kind of situation. Hopefully when we're aligned with the state, it's not, I hate that it's exclusionist. That's another sidetrack that I'm taking. It's not supposed to be fancy, right? I'm trying to dance with everybody. Eventually my trajectory is to be in private practice and be on a sliding scale fee because I really dislike the whole trend in our society where all art, whether it's expressive therapies or ballet or whatever, becomes exclusionist. Anyway, back to this little guy. So he's escaped. They're home in the US and English is like his third language, but he's not a fluent speaker in any of them. Now, some of his case, you know, workers might refer to him as nonverbal. That's another one that I really hate because he came in saying car, truck, car, truck. Well, we got verbal now. Don't tell me nonverbal if somebody has words. He was talking about there was a big race truck, I guess, outside in the city that we were in. He was excited. So we started with car and truck. And we had to sing, we had to play, we had to dance, we had to use props, we had to bang on drums. And 6 weeks later, we went from car and truck to this little boy singing Little Blue River and their best friends, telling me the whole story about the toys and what we're doing. And the whole thing unfolded like, oh, he's having these outbursts at school and doing the running away because he's lonely and he doesn't have a best friend.
Okay.
So that's one of my transformative stories where I was like, oh, this is the magic. Okay, got it.
Nice. What led you to, like I said, we kind of go all over. What kind of led you to the ministry or whatnot when you first went there back in the day? Like, is that a calling you always felt that
back
you
in
needed?
the day.
Oh,
it was a Tuesday,
I don't mean it like that.
believe.
I don't mean it like that. I just mean
I
like,
mean, you know.
Listen, you got Vinnie here, you got me here, Jeremy. We're all, you know, whatever. What I'm saying is, I just meant it was not what we're doing.
The beginning
currently.
of the story.
Yes, that.
Once upon a time. So I was privileged enough to grow up in a very strong Pentecostal church and see women doing ministry, doing dance and performance arts ministry, kids church putting on plays and performances. My parents were super active in the church when I was little. Like some people grow up going to church. I grew up in church. We're talking about 4 nights a week, and that's excluding revival week because that's 5 nights a week.
Right.
There's a reason I hate chili to this day. Okay, too many chili cook-offs. So, there was always helping people. There was always doing something different, and I personally feel like it's the same journey. The road just kind of does some things that you weren't expecting on the way up. But I don't know how Bible literate we all are, but I see part of me being a dance movement therapist as I'm still fulfilling Isaiah 61. I was in ministry school and I am now, which the first few verses says, the Spirit of God is on me. He's called me to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free. So I see mental health in America as a hidden missions field. I'm still a missionary. I'm still called to be somewhere. And I definitely said some stupid prayers when I was a young woman, telling God, I'll go where nobody else wants to go. I'll work with whoever nobody else wants to work with. And I ended up in some countries that were experiencing genocide. And then now I ended up in mental health, because guess what? Who's really unlovable? Who's really hard to serve? Who's really hard to make a difference for? I'm going to posit that mental health is up there on the top 5 list. So I still feel like, even though it's changed and I'm very different and my worldview is very different after all that, it's still the same road and I'm still fulfilling the same calling.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think anyone would argue with the mental health thing. I mean, we've seen that just in the past year or two, especially, and I'm not trying to go off on a tangent, but I mean, mental health has been put in the spotlight because it seems to be addressed in our culture and society a lot as more of a law enforcement issue rather than a place where people who need to come and provide some sort of caring or therapy or treatment for these people. So, I mean, I think a light's been shown on it, whether or not that continues. Hopefully it does. But that's why, we're glad to have a guest such as yourself to kind of bring light to something I don't think any of us had any idea what it was. I told the guys that I was in touch with a dance movement therapist. We were like, what? So,
Really?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
No, of course.
I am pushing that work through community mental health where I am now. We're administering one of the emergency grants for mental health through the Department of Mental Health. And a big chunk of my work is doing trauma-informed and self-care training for correctional officers and police officers, and teaching them real simple embodiment tools such as breathing exercises, tapping, stretches, even how they could maybe coach a client, somebody they're serving, through how to calm themselves down. And there's a huge demand. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time for all the trainings that they want me to do, because it is so of the moment that we realize how needed it is right now.
So right now, is most of your work through government agencies more than private at all?
There's many hats. There's my volunteer work, which is with Service Hearts Coalition, which is a bunch of radical, amazing breakthrough ladies who all have different wellness specialties, whether it's yoga or embodiment or music therapy or dance therapy. And we work a lot with private charities who will put people through a wellness retreat or a wellness program. So that's the volunteer piece of it. I work for Community Mental Health, which is a nonprofit organization for folks who are on, say, Medicare, folks who can't get seen another way, but really need the mental health support piece for their journey. And then the other hat through them, that company signed up for the grant through the state to help with, because a state of emergency was declared, Department of Mental Health received a grant from the Fed to do what's called crisis counseling work, specifically to COVID as a mental health crisis. So half of the week I'm a therapist and half of the week I'm a crisis counselor, and on the weekends I'm a wellness retreat facilitator.
Okay.
Nice.
Are you at times people refer you to people that need help, like from other psychologists? They say, well, I have something that might help you through this, and go ahead and try, get in touch with Ramanda.
Referring to me?
Yeah,
oh yeah.
Yeah. Other
as
psychiatrists, like a psychiatrist has a patient and thinks, well, maybe the things that Ramanda does can help you out. So I was just curious if that is known maybe through the industry, probably not so much because it's not as popular as other therapies, but if you got any from other psychologists or psychiatrists.
Absolutely. So that's a big part of my work. Like I said, I'm pioneering the modality. So that means I'm pushing the awareness for people to even know that it's an option in Kansas City. The other side of that coin is my whole internship experience was everybody else kind of gets to the end of their rope and it's like, oh, let the kid try. Was here, we do some dance. So especially because me and my big mouth, I went in there and told everybody that my work ethic is that I work with possibilities. I take can't and don't and won't and make a nice sandwich for lunch. So I
Well,
get the trouble cases. I get
sure.
the, you know, difficult cases.
Yeah.
And then we have breakthrough. So it's wonderful.
Mm. Well, I feel the positive vibe coming from you. I mean, that's got to help even just from the get-go, having that aura about you. So
Thank you.
I wish you luck, and you know, and I would try something like this. I see a therapist when I can now because of the COVID, but
Mhm.
it's helpful, and having another way of finding therapy and helping
Mhm.
yourself through things is, I think, is great. Having different options of what to do. You know,
For sure. Having another way of getting it out, because we don't have to talk about it.
No,
You don't
and
even
some
have to tell
people,
me your story. I
right?
can
And some
diagnose you with
people,
just movement.
right? And some people don't have to, you know, are afraid to talk about things.
Mhm.
And if they have this as an option, it might be helpful, you know. But yeah, I think it's a great thing, and you know, I wish you success.
Thank you.
I gotta say, I don't think I could ever participate just because I can't dance. And I know you say you don't have to know that to dance. I don't like to move. I at my
Yeah.
wedding, Jeremy, you were at my wedding. Did I move? I don't know. I know that's not what
Yeah,
it's about.
you
but-
don't want to see Mike move. You might not do this anymore.
Well, we can always start with breathing. We can always start with regular stretches that we're comfortable with. And, you know, it's, I don't ever force anybody. I don't ever make anybody. I don't ever tell anybody. I invite, I entice, I model, and then I get a lot of buy-in from there. So even if you're the kind of person that you think, well, dance movement might not fit, maybe it's art therapy, maybe it's literature therapy. There's a whole world of expressive arts that provides a different way in and a different way of expressing to get breakthrough results.
If anyone could get anything from this interview in particular, like obviously we've talked for a while now, what do you want people to get about what you do? Like what's the breakdown? What message do you want to get across to people?
It's for anyone who wants to try it. And it's much more powerful than you think signing up for it. There's a lot of studies like Vander Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, a lot of PTSD studies, a lot of things about how trauma is encoded physically in our musculoskeletal system. Being able to work with someone who is highly trained to unravel that language and help you become the boss of it, right? You can have PTSD, but I don't want PTSD to have you. It is the magic. I just get in because it is the magic. It's for everybody and it is the magic, I guess.
All right. Well, like Vinnie said, I mean, you're obviously passionate about it. You obviously care. So, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Cause I mean, I've had a few therapists that I didn't think cared and that they were just talking therapists more, but they came across as, you know, I remember one said that I needed to talk to them. Yeah, I know I need to talk, but you also have to help me get there to the point where I feel comfortable talking. So, I mean, just to have another way people can express themselves, kids, adults, you know, anyone you work with, that's pretty spectacular, I think. All right. Well, what do you want to promote? Leslie University, what do you want to promote?
Well, we did give them a wonderful plug before.
We did.
I think they're good at this point. I would like to say the grant that I'm working with, if you are a Missouri resident, it's called Show Me Hope Crisis Counseling. And if you look at Facebook, or if you just go to showmehope.org, MO for Missouri, so showmehope.org, there's all kind of free programming. There's all kind of resiliency training, whether you're a police officer, a first responder, a nurse. We're trying to make something for everybody. Most of those programs, I'll end up being your teacher, and we will end up doing some kind of embodiment, some kind of dance, some kind of breathing. So if anybody's a Missouri resident out there, please get into that. It's absolutely free. It's a grant, and we're trying to be here for better mental health at the end of COVID.
All right. And that was awesome. moshowmehope.org. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All lowercase, all together.
All right, cool. All right. Well, Ramanda Brockett, I appreciate you coming on as a guest today. I hope you had fun and you were very informative. I learned a lot. So
well, thanks so much for having me, guys. I had a ball.
Oh, it's great. Well, we'll have you again sometime, or anytime you want to come on, just let us know.
For sure. Let me know. I'll do my research. If you want to talk about PTSD specifically, if you want to talk about domestic violence specifically, let me know.
Okay.
All right. All
Sounds
right.
great.
We're gonna take a short break. You've been listening to The Usual Saints. We'll be right back.